It's that time again, folks. Welcome back to episode 3 of season 3 of the Driving Talk podcast. And I've got, once again, Paul Harvey joins us for the first time for season 3. And one Paul was missing last week. So to make up for it, I've got 2 Pauls to come along at once. I've got Paul Nevill of the Modified Ford Series, a series that I am myself involved in as a committee member. And we've got some serious discussions to have today, I believe. So without further ado, Paul Harvey, Paul Nevill, welcome back to the show.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are we?
Not too bad. Nev, good to see you. You're on a bit of an older connection tonight because the daughter, she got to Reading Festival, I understand.
Yeah, she's at Reading Festival. In the tent, blowing gales. Something I never did.
No, those were the days. That's near where I grew up, so I know of and been around Reading Festival a few times. Didn't necessarily pay the ticket to get in, but that's another story. Paul Harvey, you didn't get a chance to join myself and Max last week, but how's life been for yourself?
Yeah, very interesting. We've got lots of stuff to update you on, which will be hopefully opportunity to discuss tonight. Listen to last week's podcast with Max. I think it was a great opportunity for you and him to have a one-to-one and review his season. And I've literally just returned from Donington Park where they're performing this weekend with the Minis and the Porsches and saw him earlier in the week. So, yeah, all good. Very busy with the day job, hence the fact I haven't been able to get onto every single one of your podcasts so far, mate.
No problem at all. Now, the first part of this podcast, we've brought on Mr. Paul Nevill of the Modified Ford Series to have a bit of a serious discussion. Quite rare for the Driving Talk podcast so far. I mean, we always try and we end up saying something silly, but as many people would have seen, the MotorsportUK decide to do a lot of tweaks and a lot of rule changes. And one in particular shook the core of most organising clubs a few weeks ago, and it came as quite a surprise. Effectively, it would mean that if you run with your race club as a series, you're limited to 6 events every year, and you cannot go abroad. Which for a lot of series like the Modified Ford Series that I race in, a lot of other series like Club Sport Trophy, Sports Proto Cup, it limits a lot of what they can do. And understandably, there's absolute uproar. Isn't that right, gentlemen? That's the kind of view I'm getting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I saw it, I think my first port of call was, I thought I'd check in with BTCC, and they didn't even know it. They weren't even consulted. So that was a big shock. And obviously it's reverberated right through every club nationwide, the fact that, they're in effect pulling 30% of clubs or, formulas race days. And the wider impact on that can only be seen as sort of pretty dramatic. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, is there any sort of indication as to where this has come from? It's been, looking at it, it was a very last-minute race committee meeting held at MotorsportUK where the motion was put forward, and from my understanding, there hasn't been a lot of time for the consultation process. So are they trying to sneak this in under the radar?
It's speculation. I mean, somebody's come up with this, and then the committee's ruled in favour of publishing it. So, obviously it's not just one person; it's influence of more than one person. And there's nothing out there to sort of suggest a reason why. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of drivers, their first instinct is money making. They think somebody wants to make money out of this, but it goes against, the theory of pulling races, and disrupting this goes against the financial aspects of it. Because if they pull 30% of racing from series, from say 9 races down to 6, straight away MSUK lose out of it, the clubs lose out of it. The clubs won't be able to fill their meetings, so they'll have to bring in, they'll have to condense their own championships, and it'll just leave a big void where races won't get filled. So their calendars will have to be condensed. They'll have to, cancel some of their meetings because they won't have enough content for it. So it sort of contradicts the money side of it, the financial side of it. To me, personally, I think, they're trying to, break up series or limit series to try and feed into the championships. But what I believe haven't considered is that most or a lot of the people that do race in series are either technically uneligible to race in championships, or they choose not to, or there's nothing suitable for them. Because championships are inherently different than series. They're more aggressive. They have a higher profile. Cars are more evenly paced, so to gain track advantage, often as not, you have to push and squeeze and use your and a lot of our cars, and I'm sure a lot of other cars in series, they don't want that. They want gentleman driving.
No.
They can't afford to, do a year's championship, so they just like to do 1 or 2 races a year, which is what we're here for. We love it. We all love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Harvs, what's your thoughts on this?
I think it's a tricky one. I mean, I race in series. I have raced in a championship, but was elective and selective of which rounds I entered because I never really wanted to have a championship challenge as a recreational racer rather than someone who is fully committed to wanting to do a championship. It's obviously potentially limiting the opportunity for people to do so. I think series exists for a reason, and that is that you don't want to enter a championship. You may want to drop into different series. The car that I had, Honda Civic, was eligible in multiple different categories of multiple different series. So that flexibility was, if I wanted to race in Alton Park on this date because that fitted my diary, I could find somewhere to race. You have to pay your club memberships and everything else that go with it to enable you to enter those series. But it gave me great flexibility. Also, if I don't want to travel to a race circuit for whatever reason, and just run a weekend and live by the results of that one weekend and put my stuff away. And if I don't want to come out for another 6 months, I don't have to. So I'd be interesting to see how people then perceive championships. The championships, do they adopt the name of a championship, but you're elective as to what rounds you do and you don't do a whole season, you don't care about the results? I'm not sure. And I don't think it's clear what the motivation and reason is formally as to what's driven MSUK to make this decision. And I'm sure that they will be considering what that actually feels and looks like based on what feedback they get now that it's out in the public domain. So,
well, talking of feedback, so obviously, Paul, you've very much made your feelings known. There was an open letter published by the BRSCC that very quickly got taken down. Pure speculation, but maybe they got a bit of pressure to take it down from the highs up. They did issue something else saying that MotorsportUK have come back to them and they are going to be discussing this on the 29th of August. I mean, Mr. Nevill, you've obviously been talking to a lot of clubs. What's your general feedback been across the board?
Pretty much, we're all united here. I haven't, I put out my own letter of objection, and I've yet to anyone come and put a view against what I or everybody's saying. It's the whole theory behind it. It's just nonsense, really. The system that they had before and the system that they're trying to bring in, or the policy they're trying to bring in now, I don't know. To me, it's sort of antiquated. It needs reform across the whole differences between championships and series. And, I have full respect for championships. And I think, I think they should be, they should adopt certain values to make them justified to be a championship. I've got ideas for that. I think there should be a slight difference, but some of the rulings they make on it are just ridiculous nowadays. Back in the day when things were cheaper, possibly, and there wasn't such variation. Now people are building engines, and there's new developments for engines. Everybody's sort of running prototypes. Back in the day when things weren't so varied, you could have championships, and the series were possibly, the underdogs, the smaller. Whereas now, champion series are getting larger, and champions are getting smaller. But days have changed now. So I think they got to move with the times and look after both, because for now it seems like series are actually the backbone of motorsport, grassroots motorsport, and I think they should recognise that and deal with championships a separate way. Full respect championships, love them. You've got to have them. They're the ones that bring in the prestigious. They bring in the big sponsors. It folks drivers to sort of move up the ladder in recognition. Because when you get to a championship and you've got closely knit, battles to get first place, it becomes more about the driving skills rather than the bigger engines, because all the engines generally attempt to be the same. So there's lots of things there that they need to look at, I think. And I think just looked at series, recognise that the success of series and how big they're growing. And I think rather than trying to fix the problem, they're trying to create a problem by breaking up series. And I just think it's they haven't looked at it in a proactive sort of way.
Yeah, I mean,
go on all night.
Yeah. No, I get it, but it kind of shows your passion. I mean, working fairly closely with you on the modified Ford side of things. I can see the passion and the enthusiasm that goes into it, and it straight away when that came out, it just filled me full of frustration, because I thought you're looking for different ways to kind of aid and abet the club racer, and you're feeling that this is some sort of justification to get the job done, but they're not focusing on just getting. I don't think that they're doing enough to get license holders back.
No.
That's the long and short of it. That every year you hear that Motorsport UK are saying, "Oh, well, license holders are down."
And that was
okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Rob. That was one of the reasons, or that was one of the one of the things I wanted to bring into the modified Ford, because obviously I've been racing for a long time, in series and championships. But the regeneration wasn't really there because new blood wasn't coming in. There wasn't really anywhere, not say anywhere, it was very hard for youngsters to come into a series. They were sort of almost outlawed, because of championships, the rules, the regulations. And if they didn't have a car that suited, they had nowhere to go. Whereas with the modified Fords, we really did open the doors. And now people or drivers that have cars, they've got somewhere to come. And, we've got some youngsters, we've got people that are building cars to come into it, because it was the opportunity for new blood. And that's what I could sort of see that. I could sort of see that it was sort of getting stagnant with bringing new people in. It was too expensive, too complicated. And it was just another reason for having a series to bring in the youngsters and new blood.
And I suppose, and the other thing as well that really almost shocked me is the other thing that I really love about being in the series is the camaraderie in the paddock. And a big part of that, we have a big end of season do, have a lot of beer, hand out some trophies as a well done. And we, an unofficial well done, as it were. And it's almost as if they're saying, well, you can't have a points table. You've got to spend the £15,000 and become a championship if you want a points table, a champion, not a championship table, a points table. Now, to me, an Excel document doesn't cost 15 grand. So, and that might sound facetious, Harvs, but, an Excel document doesn't cost 15 grand. You have an unofficial points table, and to me, that's okay. The bit about having an official championship is that it's recognised by the MSA. So, to me, that means that you have it published by Motorsport UK. They do it on their side, and it's one of their blue chip things. Whereas if you have a point standings as a series, it's not as serious, which means you're not going to have the die-hard moves. You're not going to have the silly moves. You're not going to have the politics that sometimes creeps into a championship. What's your thoughts?
I mean, from my perspective, once you start getting into championships, you're starting to look at regulations, tight regulations, because everyone has to have really tight regulations to ensure that it's a fair playing field. You're going to end up with far more logistical challenges with the championship around appeals, people protesting. You know, this person's got that person's got this person shouldn't have it. I mean, from my perspective as someone who's not bothered about a championship, and there's no disrespect to anyone who is, they're perfectly entitled to do so. If I only had an option of a championship, I wouldn't race at all, because I haven't got the interest to say, well, actually, I want to go into that and I can commit to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds. I'm not bothered about that. I think as the inflation and cost of living is increasing, this is potentially a barrier for the occasional person. I mean, I know lots of people that I've raced against and would consider sort of paddock friends, that they have on many, many occasions said, well, they've run out of budget halfway through this season as a recreational racer who's not committed to a championship. So it's potentially another barrier to the drop-in person. Also, if you commit to a championship and you don't race, but you've entered, and then suddenly you decide, actually, you know what, I fancy doing the Brands Hatch round this time, but I've got a car that runs at the front in that series, and other people have been racing all year. I could just turn up and ruin 2 people that could have been competing, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, and just ruin the whole of their year by the fact that I've decided, well, I want to race this weekend. I have to enter a championship. I've not done any of the other rounds previous. Technically, I can probably join this race and bugger everything else up for everyone else. Whereas if it was a series, it doesn't matter. I mean, I might take a different view to you about, if you're going to enter a series, why bother with an unofficial points table?
It's if you don't fit into a championship or can't fit into a championship, but you still want to race, and you commit yourself to something, or you do well in a race, why can you not celebrate your achievements through that year by, say, having a 30 quid pot at the end of the year, where the series, you've got people dipping in and dipping out, but you've sort of stuck it there and you've come third or whatever, first or so. Why can somebody not say, well, well done you. You can't race anywhere else, but well done you. Here's a 30 quid pot to sort of say you've achieved in this, and pat on the back. And the only way to sort of count that up is really, we've got, I think last year we had 120 different cars on the grid. And the only way to do that is points. And we could say do it with tiddlywinks, but, it's easier with points. And to celebrate, the car.
But MotorsportUK is sitting there thinking that there's a number of series that are potentially operating in some way as a championship, but avoiding paying the registration fee or whatever it's called. And so that they think, is it a loophole? And are they missing out on revenue? I don't know. I don't know how they're.
I think the registration permit. I think the cost of a permit for either championship or series is negligible. It's all the governance that goes with a championship, as you say, the governance that goes with it. As a series, we self-govern. If people want to contest because he's won, not interested. We're self-governed. There's no political side of it. We're just a bunch of guys that want to go racing, dip in, dip out. If someone says, well, he's coming in and taking points away, it's not about that. They, honestly, the guys don't care about it.
No.
But if they do well, they to sort of, if they do well, if there wasn't a pot, they wouldn't care. But if there was a pot, they do care. I mean, I won't suggest for a minute that we do points or pots, but I'd like to say, why not? If I sort of say to somebody, MSUK won't let us have end of year trophy, the first thing that anybody ever says is why, and I try and explain to them, and I try to find out a reason why they shouldn't, from a championship's perspective, and nobody can really understand it. And I don't really know where it came from to start with.
I think it's fair to say they're not saying that there's no series allowed, are they? But they're limiting the number of races and overseas. I mean, that seems a strange one to me.
The overseas rounds, really. I mean, Motorsport UK are all about promoting UK motorsport. Well, what's better than having the Europeans having UK series go over to them and go, look how many cars. I mean, so modified Fords have been to Spa. They're going to Spain this year. I'm probably not allowed to say where the series is potentially going next year, but that's going to be another brilliant away round, I feel. These Motorsport UK should actually be saying, well done. You're taking these series into Europe and showing what British motorsport is all about. And if anything, you're helping warm relations with our European cousins and potentially enticing some of them to come over here for a race. I mean, the young timers in Holland, I don't know if they still do, they used to come to Brands Hatch for a couple of rounds. So if that's the case, what's to stop other clubs in Europe deciding no? If that's going to be the way MSA are going to play it, then we'll pull some champion. And again, it's lost revenue from the UK circuit. So,
you can't disconnect MSUK and MSV as majority operator of a lot of circuits in the UK, but MSV have just bought a European track.
Yeah. And
they might have liked to have known that this was potentially coming along, because I'm sure part of their business case and revenue stream would be to have series racing at one of their tracks, which is now in Europe, which potentially is a completely, thrown a spanner in their business plan and their logistical plan and their potential revenue and everything else. So it's come. I don't know that there was any forewarning of this. I don't know if anyone saw it coming, and I'll be really interested to understand from a business perspective what the real purpose that this is trying to achieve. Or maybe we'll never find out officially. I don't know. But
well, I'm sure we'll find out next week. But go on, Mr. Neville, go ahead.
Oh, well, it was just, again, why deny somebody that's just as integral in club motorsport that's in a series? Why deny them the opportunity to race aboard when they can? If you have to be a championship to race aboard, and we don't fit into a championship, or we choose not to fit into a championship, but the series are there, why? Again, it's just, why are they trying to break up the series? Because I think the impact will be detrimental to championships or anything else. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Harvs, you made a great point with MSV having Navara. Funnily enough, modified Fords are racing there at the end of the year, but to be a fly on the wall in Jonathan Palmer's office when that bit of Motorsport UK lettering landed on his doorstep. It'd be interesting to know what his reaction was.
Yeah, and if it's a championship, because they run Track Day Championship, Track Day Trophy there this year, so Trophy wouldn't be able to run as a series under the new rules. And you go all the way and potentially miss out on the ability to run two races and make it more cost effective and get the best optimal weekend. And then you think, well, I'm going to go all that way to do one 45-minute race and 30-minute qualifying. Now suddenly it's not necessarily stacking up quite so well. There's all sorts of ripples. There's going to be lots of ripples in relation to this, and some going to potentially be barriers to entry for motorsport in different ways, reduce the opportunities, and it could have some financial consequence.
But are there loopholes in this where, if you can't go to Europe as under a Motorsport UK permit, could you just go to the European circuit under the guise of modified Ford's track day? So you just go as a track day, and it just it forms part of your calendar. So under the UK, you've got 6 races, but then you go and do 2 or 3 in Europe just under a track, modified Ford's track day.
Or if you really want to be, and I'm not suggesting this, what's to stop any clubs turn around and go, you know what, I'm sick to death of this. I don't feel I'm being looked after, and that's the thing. A lot of the sort of chat on social media was a lot of people saying, well, what do Motorsport UK actually do for the club racer at the moment? What's to stop a breakaway from happening? Because it's happened in Canada, it's happened in France, Australia. There have been breakaway clubs that have effectively self-regulated themselves. and the only issue has been insurance. But, UK bike racing does it absolutely fine. Road racing does it absolutely fine. They have big, insurance premiums as it is, but they find the money, they stick it in the bank, and that's for sort of the excess payments. But what's to stop that from happening?
Let MSV own half the circuits and have the power.
Do you think they would?
I think it's we have to see what happens with MSUK, I think.
Indeed.
It's just a shame they put such a negative, just such a grey cloud over motorsport for such a silly statement, a silly rule that they've tried to impose. But it's a black cloud over motorsport in a whole, and it's crazy.
And I think, probably my question to you, Paul, is, as someone who's a series organiser, and Rob, you're involved in Mod Fords from the organising committee, but to suddenly have to deal with this, full stop, this is something that you've now got to navigate, discuss with, and you've got to be thinking, well, what does this mean for us and for our colleagues who you're putting the series on for? This is actually, people in general do it on a semi-voluntary, you're not going to become a billionaire running Mod Fords. You're doing it as a passion project, and there may be some bits, I'm not sure, and that's not to be discussed necessarily. But they're putting a lot of emphasis on people in your position now to have to think about lots and lots of things, and some of it's going to be outside of your skill set. Should you have lawyers involved? What does it mean for so many people in similar positions to you across the UK that are running series?
I don't do it as a business. I do it as a hobby. I race in the series. I have raced in the series since its conception. So for me, it's just a hobby. It's just a group of guys going racing for the love of it. And I think it's because I see it that way. Whereas other series, I'm sure they run it more as a business, or because they're bigger clubs, it forms part of their business program. Whereas for me, it's almost like a track day, an organised track day sort of thing, and we recognise the guys that are in it, and it's expanded and it's successful, and there's a lot of differences in ours because we're all Fords, we're all enthusiasts. Our cars are sort of classics, semi-classics. We don't want to break them up. So I think the whole thing about our series is a little bit unique, and
it's open. We've got free regs. That's kind of why we get the vast majority of the cars in, because they come from a very wide and varied background, different walks of life, and that's what makes it work.
But where do we go now? I've already got my calendar for next year. We've got 9 races and 1 away. I don't think they could impose this new rule from 2025 because obviously becoming a championship, the application for that passed in end of July, 1st of August or whatever. So whether they actually move that goalpost or whether they actually defer it to 2026 is yet to be seen, or whether it's scratched out altogether. So until we know which direction we can take, really depend on how motivated and what we do. If we become a championship, what does it mean? What do we have to comply with to become a championship? If it's just the name and I can operate exactly the same way as I do, what is it? Why this big fuss in calling ourselves a championship? If they're going to say we can't have our regs as they are, say you've got to adapt your regs to satisfy us, then it shuts the door on what they're trying to achieve. So there's lots of hurdles that may appear, but I don't know what they are at the moment. So,
and I guess that's part of my point, is that as a series organizer and as someone who's doing it as a hobby, a passion, and facilitating other people with your passion and enthusiasm for Fords to go and race in a friendly, competitive environment, suddenly you've got all this to deal with, and some people just go, well, why would I bother now? I'm not interested in it. I don't want to have to go through working all this out. I've got other things over here. It's going to put strain and stress potentially on people that are just going to say, I'll fold the series, sod that, I'm not interested, I don't make any money out of it. Off you go.
On that, Robin mentioned in episode 1, he's had conversations with other people that are running series on other calendars, and they're really struggling. And they've committed to certain track time throughout the year, and they're struggling to get cars on the grid, and it's almost virtually bankrupting them. And I mean, there are Robin running the C1 club. His is a series. He had to cancel his 24-hour race because and that nearly bankrupted him. I think the bit, instead of focusing on, we need to get these guys to turn their series into championship for a bit more revenue, actually go down on the floor and go to race meetings and actually ask the people that run the series, what do you need from us? Why are people struggling? What, all of these surveys that Motorsport UK puts out, and the one thing I've constantly seen is a rising cost, and it's the one thing I've always gone back in the surveys to Motorsport UK, but I don't really see a lot from them promoting cost cutting or any dialogue with the circuits to get the costs down, anything like that. They've just got all these other initiatives that...
It'd be interesting to see if, say, something like you can't race in Europe is because effectively when you race in Europe, you race under MSUK regs, and those regs can be different to European regs in terms of safety and everything else. And maybe they've said, well, you're operating below a standard that we're happy with in Europe. So maybe there's a consideration in that regard.
Yeah.
We raced in
Why
Spa.
Why six races?
Yeah.
How is six the number? I'm really interested in what the thought process and why that's the threshold. And
when we raced in Spa, we ran under their regs. So generally I'm talking safety regs here. So when we went to Spa, it was FIA regs. So we, the drivers that went, we had to comply with those regs. And, Spa provide us with the full list of safety regs that's applicable. The technical regs is us, that's the championship or the series that fulfil that. But going back to your last statement, Paul, about this disruption, what would you do? What would the series do? Do we just hang our coat up and just call it a day because of disruption? What are the drivers gonna be like? Now, the Modified Fords is so exciting at the moment, and I'm so much part of it, and I see the enthusiasm from the drivers. And
commentators and spectators and sponsors.
I've never gone out to anybody and encouraged them to come to Modified Fords. Yes, I do some stuff on social media. I treat everybody with the same privileges. If the guy's got a nice car, he doesn't go on top of my list. If the guy's got if he's got a shitty car, he can't join us. But if he's, if people low down, I treat everybody with the same respect. I don't poach drivers from anywhere. I just offer, I lay the table, and it's for them. If they want to come to dinner, they can come to dinner. And, the enthusiasm and the camaraderie and the friendliness of our series, I couldn't for a minute even think about closing it down because we're hitting obstacles. We'll just find ways around it. And that's how I feel about the series and what I absorb from the people that race in it. And if other people have got a different way of doing things and it doesn't work, it's their lookout. Yeah.
And for anyone sort of watching or listening to this podcast, don't forget it's on Spotify and YouTube and all such great things at the Driving Talk podcast powered by Icon. For the people that are watching and listening out there, just watch the last race, race 2 at Silverstone that was on the TCR UK meeting. It's still up and live on the BRSCC channels. That's probably one of the best races I've seen of the Modified Fords. I was covering the Brands Hatch round, so I watched this on Monday night, and I was enthralled. I mean, it was a fantastic effort from Dave Cockhill to go from last to first. But even leading up to the series, I found that the commentary team, Andy McEwen and Richard John Neal, were really talking about the series, harking back to the old days of classic Thunder or Thunder Saloons in the mid 90s, early 90s, and sort of harking back to those days. And Richard John Neal in particular absolutely loves the series. So, it's doing great work, and I just feel that all this in the past couple of weeks has perhaps put a bit of a dent in what is quite a shining example at the moment, and perhaps MSUK need to put their resources elsewhere. It's just my 2 pence.
I'd certainly, as someone who's not necessarily raced for, done a bit of Fiestas, but from an outsider looking in, congratulations, Paul, really, because that grid is amazing. And as anyone who's either even just a car or a Ford or a motorsport enthusiast, that grid is mega. And people across all different series will stop and look at your series when they're on track and going about their business. The driver standards are fantastic. I know Rob's very passionate about it, and he's a driveway build right into some very, very expensive kits driven by some really amazing drivers. Fair play and chapeau. That is a mega series, and it's fantastic to watch from the outside.
I appreciate you saying. Thank you.
So we shall wait and see what Motorsport UK come back with in the next week. But for now, this first segment of the podcast, thank you very much, Paul Nevill. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Nice to be on there. Thank you, Rob. Nice to see you, Paul.
So, Paul, that was quite an interesting chat with Mr. Paul Nevill, wasn't it?
Very interesting, very timely. Great to get some insight from someone who's running a series. And it would be really interesting to see how it plays out. I don't think this is the end of what's going on by a long stretch. Understanding more of MSUK. MSUK are not full of silly people that are looking to harm UK motorsport.
No, and
so there must be some rationale behind it. But,
I get that, and I you know me, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I speak from my heart, and perhaps I can be a bit rash at times. But I just feel that what they've done here and the uproar that's resulted, just don't understand potentially what the race committee are thinking. But we'll see what happens and what the outcome of it is. Now, it is time for our second ever Driven Minds Minute. And as we had Max doing it last week, this week it's down to Mr. Paul Harvey. Now, Paul, I want you to think back to your first ever race. How could you deal with the nervousness, adrenaline and everything as you lined up on that grid? And what advice could you give to any other first-time racers out there? You've got a minute for your answer. Go.
Oh, that's interesting. I've got some other stuff on the Driven Minds Minute as well, but I'll talk about that separately. So, first ever race was track days moving into racing. Did some track days for years. Thought I was pretty quick, as everyone does who does a track day. A couple of friends of mine who also had a Clio 182 went off and did a track day trophy race and came in the middle of the pack in their Class C Clio. And I thought, well, I think I'm quicker than them, and I think my car's quicker than them, and they can race. And when I watched them and supported them, I thought, well, that looks interesting. So I got into it from that perspective. First race, shared the experience with someone that you know, Russell Harding, as a co-drive, and did a test day on the Friday, racing on the Sunday. So really enjoyed having the opportunity to drive Silverstone, but with more purpose, definitely more focus. I think probably the build up to it was more around, is the car ready? Has it got the stickers? Have I got the right tyres? Have I got this? Have I got that? So the logistics probably took over. The nerves only kicked in when I get in the car, and always, even to this day, the biggest part for me about handling nerves is being in assembly, actually going out. By nature, I'm a competitive sportsman by history, and I like that element of stuff. But I have to say that when it comes to racing, genuinely, I'm still mindful of what potential consequences there could be. I'm father to a 10-year-old. I'm not reckless around that sort of stuff. You never find me sending something from 200 yards back, trying to fire one up the inside. I just concede that, which is probably why I don't race at the front anymore. But having to manage that and actually to tell myself to push, saying to yourself, come on, push, motivate yourself, and dealing with all of those pieces. The first ever piece coming out onto the track and thinking, never done the start before. Track day trophy doesn't have a formation lap. So literally it's get in the queue. Where do I go? Someone's going to point me in the right direction. The boards, you get your briefing in the morning at 30 seconds, 5 seconds, and the lights go out. Got an amazing start, which was, got a brilliant start at Silverstone and the old pits. Start, finish straight, went into the first corner. I thought, oh Christ, and actually spent far too much time looking behind me. Not looking forwards, too busy worrying about, am I getting in other people's way? Someone's going to hit me from behind. Now, really focused on full, nothing reckless, sort of sliding side to side, unless it's a online Clio's, in which case it's a free fall.
Then it pulls out, go for it.
Yeah. I probably would be in a few judicials if the Clio Cup came back. But too much focusing behind. So I would suggest to people, focus on what's in front of you, be positive. Got a great start and then settled in pretty quick. And I guess the other thing that I found in the first race is a 45-minute race with a 2-minute mandatory pit stop. So I did the first session, was actually, even on a track like Silverstone with 45 cars, I think were racing across different categories. You do find large parts of a race when you're on your own. There's no one immediately in front of you. There's no one immediately behind you. So that was the major piece for me in terms of managing nerves, was in assembly and that first experience of lights out. How am I going to go? Don't stall it. Don't roll backwards. Don't jump start. And then spending far too much time looking behind me, not looking forwards enough. And then as I sort of did more races, actually the start's the best part for me now. So what was probably my biggest nemesis is now the most exciting part for me. I'd much rather do sprint races that are shorter in general, because I get to do the start again, a second race over the weekend.
And for the second time in a row, we've got an answer that's way more than a minute, but I'm going to allow it because that was a proper in-depth Driven Minds minute there. So if you are a first-time racer, you're looking to get on that track for the first time, just have a listen to what Paul's saying there. But I'm loving doing these Driven Minds minute segments. And Paul, you had some cracking ideas for some future Driven Minds minute segments. What you got?
So interestingly, I don't think I'm having a midlife crisis just yet. 51 and a half, if you count sort of like junior half years, just for context. But I'm definitely having a period of transition. I'm sure it'll end up in some form of midlife crisis, because then I can justify reckless spending and everything else and just blame it on psychology. But actually, I've been really competitive in sport and everything else for a number of years, and I've stopped racing in 2021. Had a really good season, won a lot of races, kind of felt at that point, okay, prove that to myself.
No, that's fair enough.
So what am I going to do? And then in the last couple of years, particularly in the last 6 to 12 months, suddenly started feeling my age a little bit. I kind of ignored the 50th birthday, and 51 seems to be a bit of a trigger. Lost my dad in February last year, the day after my 50th birthday. And there's certain things that are potentially missing that used to make up my identity. And so, not midlife crisis, but midlife reassessment, I guess. And some of that is, I've worked in high pressure roles at work since my mid-20s. I have great responsibility to my family, but also to the people that I work with in my current business. It's an £80 million business with 1,600 employees. There's 3 of us that are the main shareholders. And with that has come a lot of pressure. And part of that has come around physique. So putting on weight. The weight is linked to stress because I eat when I'm stressed. So it's about learning about myself a bit more. And then interestingly, I have the ability to very rapidly become quite. It's like a therapy session, Rob. I don't know about
almost is, but this is go on. This is quite a good insight.
Yeah, but one of the things that's missing, and I've started getting itchy about, is how do I channel some of that stress out? And one of the things that I think is missing is making me itchy at the moment is doing more track time and potentially doing some more racing.
Are you telling me you're coming back to racing, Paul Harvey?
I'm not telling you anything. I'm just saying that I'm considering, and in terms of the Driven Minds minute and mental health, and actually the role that motorsport potentially could play for me in being an outlet for satisfying some competitive need. And at the same time as that, enjoying the adrenaline and everything else that goes with it. I enjoy and have played team sports for a number of years, and I don't do that now. So I enjoy the social as well. Yeah. So the social aspects of it, obviously seeing you, seeing the team and the drivers and everyone else, and just being in and around it. It's a nice break. So yeah, I mean, getting itchy, thinking about maybe KAs at Brands Hatch at the end of the year in the 500.
Seeing them on Ford's grid next year, Paul.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it separately. Clio Cup GB on the Saturday of that same weekend. So maybe a bit of testing Friday, I mean, I'm going to be rusty as hell if I decide to pick it up. I have no expectations of positive outcomes other than, keep it sunny side up. But yeah, it's interesting that part of that evaluation of some of the things that I need, motorsport may well be able to facilitate and make me a more content human being.
Love that. And it does. Motorsport is a wonderful thing. It's something that I live and breathe. And that is that kind of mantra, Paul, what you're doing this year. We're going to follow that for the Driven Minds segment as well. Paul's midlife management, we'll call it, in association with Driven Minds. I love that. We'll get that done.
Yeah. Justified Racing, I think, is the short version of that, but I've dressed it up as some sort of psychological babble. So
superb. Right. TOCA Juniors, because I was ready to absolutely tear the new championship a new one, primarily because of cost. But my mother taught me there are two sides to every story, and good friends of the show, Graves Motorsport, have committed to entering cars into the series. Now, someone with a very good inside voice into the Graves Motorsport camp is yourself, Paul. So, TOCA Juniors, talk us through the concept. What's good? What's attracted you to it from your perspective? How do you think it's going to go? Because it's also bringing back a British brand, and everyone's lauding that. But I find it's quite a troubled brand, because the last comeback with the GR8 did British GT, and then it disappeared again. So is this another comeback that could be doomed to fail? I don't know. Over to you.
First thing is, I'm not a spokesperson for Graves Motorsport, nor am I involved in that organisation day to day, but I have a lot of friends there.
Yeah.
And I will talk on behalf of myself, and certainly not on their behalf. Graves have been in and around that paddock for a period of time now, initially through Coopers, then JCWs, more recently through the Porsche paddock on the Sprint Challenge. And actually, we were talking about this the other day, is that they're still relatively new to this more elite level of motorsport. 4 or 5 years, they were more club oriented.
Hang on a minute. Elite level motorsport, wasn't Dave Graves production BMW champion?
Oh yeah, everyone has their moment in the sunshine, and he absolutely should get all the credit he deserves for that. But certainly, professional motorsport, running it as a business on the TOCA package. And they are the first people to commit to it publicly. That only came out this morning, I believe. So we're on
yesterday,
Friday the 23rd. Yesterday, so yes, the 22nd of August. Hopefully that gives them the head start on potentially drivers talking to them. But actually the announcements come on the Thursday of a TOCA weekend where they're racing at Donington. So potentially lots of immediate interest and inquiries. At the same time, they've got to run the weekend as well. So I'm sure that Cole's going to have some additional battery charges on standby. and I think it's an interesting proposition. Rear-wheel drive, naturally aspirated engine, meeting the junior regulations, mixed reactions around the styling of the car. Some people have said sort of,
I did get back to
Max Power Peugeot or whatever. Yeah. But then if you think about the people that are going to be interested in the series are going to drive it, that probably suits them as well. I think the layout's interesting in terms of rear-wheel drive and what they want to do with that. There's definitely been a gap since Ginetta Juniors left that TOCA card. I think there's a natural home for them over there in GTs, isn't there? So.
Yeah, I think there is. I don't know. I think the only natural gap that exists is just on the TOCA package. And this is one of the things that immediately caught my eye. I mean, I've watched, JSCC are on the BARC package. You've got BRSCC Fiesta Juniors, which has thrived this year. And Max has been coaching some awesome drivers in that particular series as well. You've got Ginetta Juniors. You've got lots of junior series already in the UK arguing for drivers that are up and coming through. Effectively, you're aiming for drivers that are spending lots of money karting. And I get that that's factored into cost as well. A lot of these karters and that will already be spending upwards of that in the karting world. So I kind of get it. I did look at the cost and wince. I mean, what was it, 94 grand? If you think about it, it's a lot of money.
Everything's relative, Rob. It's a lot of money to us. to some others, it's not, and it's not going to be the most expensive form of motorsport that's out there as well. So it's more expensive than driving a Citroen Saxo.
Absolutely.
But actually,
and a Fiesta.
The people, it's about positioning that series, isn't it? Who's going to go into it? Where do they see they're going to go?
Touring cars. Really, it's either got to be someone that's going then into F4 and then upwards like Lando Norris did with Ginetta, or are you going to get someone that's going to enter it and then go into Porsches and then go GTs, which takes a little bit away from Ginetta Juniors, which I'm sure Mr. Gow won't be too disappointed with.
I mean, TOCA have definitely provided a series for TOCA's benefit. They're not going to want other people to feed into other series necessarily. There must be some motivation to have a junior series, and also the racing is normally great. Really close. Great to see a different format, some different looking cars. So I think it's really exciting, and we're yet to see who else is going to commit to the series and what the grids are going to look like. I believe the car is hopefully on display this weekend at Donington. So if you can see it, feel it, touch it, we've only seen the photos and the renders up until this point. So it'd be interesting to see what the feedback is. And, it's great to see a team like Grays be at the forefront and first ones to commit to the series. Their presence in that paddock is growing and the business is thriving. They're highly competitive in everything they've done. And, there's no reason why they shouldn't be successful in this as well. So I'm excited to see how that plays out for the team. And the people involved in the team, and how that continues to thrive and grow the series. Question marks have to be over what's the impact on other series. The Cooper class of minis. Are people coming out of karting that have gone into that? Are they now they've got another avenue to consider? So what does that mean for mini and people like that? Obviously, different price point potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say
close enough.
Yeah, the price point on that is going to be. I mean, what's a budget for a Cooper racer in a year? 40 grand now. Let's be honest.
What, the car or the
all in? If I came to you as Mr. Minis Are Us Racing, let's say, and I said, Paul, I want you to put me in a car for the year, everything all in. How much?
Well, I wouldn't know, Rob. And that would be commercially sensitive information if I did know, of course. But it's probably not as far away as you would imagine. From what's being quoted. And we know what we do know is that karting at European-ish level is 120, 130k a year upwards. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all once you throw all the other logistics and everything else into it. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's hopefully something that will gain traction. But similar to the Clio Cup GB this year, it might take some time for the grids to a couple of years for the grids to really get some traction. But it's on the TV, so there's always attractive to sponsors. There's different people that are going to be looking at as a pathway. And there must have been some time and consideration put into what the car is going to be, how it's going to work. We've heard some rumours about TOCA Junior for probably 1 or 2 years leading up to this. So there's a lot of thought gone into it. And, the people that organise the TOCA series are no fools commercially, are they? So, and they're great at providing interesting packages and race series for TV and free-to-air TV through RTV4. So, I'm really excited about it, and I'd be interested to see who else is going to follow up and say, we're going to throw our hat in there.
What do you reckon? Do you reckon we're going to have some teams come up at Donington, or at least before the end of the season? If there's other teams interested, they're going to put their hats in the ring, aren't they?
Well, if it's a TOCA series and you're in and around the TOCA package, I'd imagine that this is not surprising news to you that this series has been announced. There must be some full touring car teams that are thinking of it as a junior series. We know that Napa have got cars in mini challenge, so what does that mean for them? But it is a slightly different format. Rear-wheel drive, NA, a lot of the touring cars, front-wheel drive, turbo with hybrid now, aren't they? So is it a natural pathway into that? I don't know. Time will tell. But if you're in the paddock already and you think that there's an opportunity to bring some young drivers through and part of your development program, attach yourself to some of the best drivers at that age group, then professional teams will want the best talent that they can get. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we start seeing a few junior teams, as we have done with Napa, for example. Laser Tools, another sponsor in that category as well, where they've got people in the mini paddock. Are they going to look at something else?
Yeah, maybe. I know Accelerate have recently said about getting some more cars in the British Touring Cars. Could that be another avenue, and perhaps they start up their own academy? You never know, really. I put the question to Max, just coming off the TOCA Junior subject. I put the question to Max in episode 2, and we had a chat about it. Your thoughts about racing in the British Touring Cars this year? We've moved on a bit, and they had some fantastic racing at Knock Hill. I still don't want to call who's going to win the championship this year in the top job, but the British Touring Car Championship has lowered its quantity. Certainly hasn't lowered the quality in the racing, that's for sure.
No, the racing's very close. Also, congratulations to Dan Zelos, who's managed to
smashed it.
Just been promoted up to the full team. I don't know how many races that's going to be, if it's going to be to the conclusion of the season. With someone else dropping out, it's created an opportunity for him. He's obviously won the mini challenge this year and has done consistently well and been at the forefront of that. So it'd be really great to see him rewarded also for the loyalty that he's had. So.
But it's a double-edged sword as well, because I really feel for Ronan Pearson, and slightly biased in the fact that at Knock Hill, Ronan Pearson actually carried a Driven Minds logo on his car. And we're actually due to get him on the show at a later date, so that should be an interesting listen. Perhaps he probably won't be able to divulge everything that's happened, but we'll have a chat about it with him nonetheless. But for Ronan Pearson to come in and win in your second year in British touring car racing is still a damn fine effort, and he'll be back, I hope.
Guy can drive. They can all drive. And we don't know the ins and outs, but I think the focus for me on the positive side is Dan's got a great opportunity to showcase his talents. He's been consistently at the front in that championship, and it'll be great to see how he goes over the next few weekends. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk Porsches, because you were at testing with Max on Thursday, as we talk now, Friday the 23rd. So, Max is getting ready for his Donington weekend that we spoke about in episode 2. How was he feeling going into it, Paul? Was he nervous?
No, not nervous. Not nervous at all. He is a consummate professional.
Pressure is for tyres, as is in episode 2.
Pressure is for tyres, yeah. I mean, obviously, there has to be an element of every single session and every single weekend counts, from here on in. It's great to see him at the front. As he said, it's the first time he's had a brand spanking new car. He is highly competitive in that series. Interestingly, the test day started off very, very wet and then dried out. Believe the test day yesterday, so Thursday, was dry, but the forecast for the weekend with hurricane, whatever it is, sweeping through, or the storm that's coming, probably wet again. Yeah, and you don't want to put the bock on it, do you really? But we know that Max is a very strong driver in the wet and was excellent at Snetterton in changeable conditions as well, making the right calls on tyres and stuff. So we would expect him to run at the front. As always with Max, the challenge is that he's very busy at the weekend. It's not just the time in the car, it's the time out the car and the other stuff that goes with it. So hopefully he finds the time and space to be able to really focus in.
Yeah.
The time sheets on test days are never conclusive. You don't know who's running what fuel loads, tyres, old, new, how many laps are on the older tyres, if they're all going out together. But they're not far off the front. And actually, there's a lot of people there. I think on Tuesday in the wet session, that group were running 1, 2, and 4, I think, or something like that on the timesheets. Or there was one car missing from the test because he was busy doing something else. So but Max, Ethan, and Jacob were really strong running in the wet. So if it is a wet weekend, then hopefully they can continue to take. But anything can happen, can't it?
Absolutely, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the run-in for the Porsche Sprint Challenge, not just because of our kind of times with Max and him being a co-host on this show, but just to I mean, when the Caymans first started, there was a bit of a dullness to the racing there, and people were quite rightly sort of saying that the racing wasn't particularly as sharp as it could have been. But the past few years, you've seen some real proper seasoned competitors going in there. Not as much. You've still got gentleman races in there, but I think having the more consummate professionals near the front, trying to make their way up the ranks, such as Max, Steve Roberts, people like that, have really, just in my opinion, really invigorated the series. And again, having teams like Graves go in there and fight against the likes of Team Parker and stick it to them. And even in Porsche Carrera Cup, CCK Motorsport, Charles Rainford, which is effectively him and his dad going racing. Great to see.
Yeah, they were in the garage next door actually on Tuesday, so that was interesting to see. What a great drive by Charles up at Knockhill. Defended for a very long period.
Yeah,
withstood that pressure. Put himself right in the hunt for the championship. I think he's lying second, very close to top. But Porsche Motorsport, I mean, it probably goes without saying, but I will say it is what a fantastic organising series. That series organiser. They've changed the hospitality unit this year. That is another level of absolutely outstanding. And that's great for the drivers to be able to host their sponsors, for their families and everyone else. Really professionally run, very level, even playing fields, very well policed, but firm but polite, and everyone wants to play within that. The test day on Tuesday, a whole circuit just full of Porsches, so 911s and Caymans alternating sessions as part of your entry. That's included. Slightly different when Open Track came at 5 o'clock for the evening session. There's an eclectic mix of all sorts of stuff in the car park.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a proper series. And, the different classes, the Pro and Am in Club Sport and Pro and Am in the RS, it's competitive, and everyone is very, very close, and drivers do make a difference, can make a difference. And it's great to see the team running at the front of that, but the driver standards are really good. They don't put up any nonsense of contact. And if you try and torpedo someone, you'll just have your place taken away. So it's respectful, competitive. There is a brand associated with it that Porsche want racing in a certain way. They want the cars turned out in a certain way. And I can't speak about the numbers, but seems pretty cost effective for what you get.
I think with what you get, yeah. I mean, if you compare it to other similar price points, I mean, TCR UK, and you would have noticed a few drivers have actually gone from TCR to race Caymans. And I think a big part of that is the price point. Effectively, it's bang for your buck. Because if it's the same price point and you're on free-to-air TV, commercially, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and the cars are amazing. I mean, I can say that now because I've worked a way of actually getting out of the driver's seat. So I'm not the most flexible or smallest of individuals on the planet by any stretch. First time I tried to get out, I literally had to torpedo myself sideways in a Superman action. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, obviously, proper motorsport regulated, winged seat, cage. The gap's not the biggest even for the racing snakes that are 35 years younger than me and very athletic and half my weight probably, or at least 20 kilograms or more lighter. But now I've worked the technique out. It's not elegant, but I don't have to crawl out like someone who's like literally Superman out the side. So now I'm even more in awe of them than I was before. But yeah, they're amazing bits of kit. The RS is quieter, I think, than the Club Sport one startup and stuff like that. Different sound.
But
arguably,
faster.
Potentially, but but Max said, as quick as the 911s with less grip. So, they are pedaling very well, and it's really good to see competition at the front is very tight.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And we look forward to seeing how Max gets on this weekend. Any other business from yourself, Paul? You had quite the list going into this pod. It's good to see you back.
Well, let's go down the list. So, as well as Porsche, Graves have got 4 Mini Coopers out. Well. James Black, had a quick chat with him. He's gone really well this year. I think he's moved up and he's very competitive. It's good to see his progression.
Not just that, the commercial work he's been doing as well to promote himself. If any young driver wants to follow in someone's footsteps, they don't have all of the budget. They make do with what they've got. and they're fantastic at doing that. And definitely, if you need someone to look at and see how they're doing it the right way, James Black's one of them.
Yeah, and Alex Sully's been running at the front. Leo is relatively new to racing as well. So all four cars that are out are good, but certainly to have that strength at the front. As well as the KAs at Snetterton. I've also, for the second time this year, and will continue to try and support through the year, is Dickie Taylor, who's entered Clio Cup GB. Dad and lads, again, behind it. Braves are running that team, or running that car. And when that grid gets bigger, that is going to be a very, very interesting series to watch because at the moment there's not that many cars, and I think a couple more. I think there's Braves have announced one more, Westbourne have announced one more. So if have
the cars slowly started coming into the country now? Then,
I mean, I think there's like an 8-week lead, is what we understand, and they are being built. They're a fully factory built race car. They didn't have any template to go off. This is not a road car that's kind of transitioned into race car other than the shell shape. So they learned as they go, and they probably over-engineered it in certain ways, but it's a proper factory race car. But the racing, if anyone's watched any of the live streams on NSV, has been incredibly close at the front. No one's pulling miles off the front. So as that grid gets bigger, that's going to be interesting. Driver standards is going to be something that could potentially be challenging and for MSV to police and to keep. But what a great series! Brilliant cars, really close racing at the front. Even though there's only a few cars, when they are going to grow that grid, that's going to be really exciting. And I think it was just a challenge because at the start of the year they didn't have a car to show people at the NEC because they were waiting for one to come through. When people were making their decisions about what they're going to do for the year, they like to see, feel, touch, and really understand it a bit more. Understand what the costs are going to be. What does it really feel and look like? So hopefully that series will grow. But I think maybe 8 cars by the end of this year, 8 to 10 moving into next year. But yeah, really interested. And Nicky got a win, which was really good. Turned out he had COVID at the time, I think, as well. So, yeah, really good. And wish him well. Couple of other bits. The KAs at Snetterton, Braves won the Dagenham Dustbin for the Kagermeister, as voted by the stewards for the most exciting livery. So the Kagermeister thing, possibly after his BMW Championship win, the next best piece of accreditation and certification that David's ever got. Forget all these Porsche wins and everything else that the team's experiencing in minis and JCWs on the TOCA package. That's right up there. I know Sam was very, very pleased with the Dagenham Dustbin. We've managed to get Sam's van MOT'd. I went up and washed it and cleaned it. But now, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Home. Yeah. So Sam built a Civic Cup car like two years ago, and it was immaculate. You could eat your dinner off it. Absolutely beautiful car. And we're going to have Sam on the show in a few weeks to talk about the birth of the Racers Lounge and how it came about. And it's just a group of club racers, a lot of the Grace Motorsport fraternity, myself and you, Paul. This is how we met. He blew the engine up on the Civic. It rotated the shell. Year and a half ago now, testing at Snet. Bought another engine.
I believe it was February 22. So I think it's longer than you think.
Longer than I think. So just over 2 years. Okay, so we built this car yonks ago. And it's sat in storage since with a blown engine in it. And all he needs to do is swap engines over, run a new engine in, and then go racing with it. So is that the new Paul Harvey race car?
No, but certainly it's an option, I think, for some eligible series. But I mean, Sam bought an engine for that car very shortly after the other one had its issue. We knew that there was a problem with it when it was first bought, and it transpired to be the case. After testing and it let him down, he bought the engine, but it's been close to the shell, but not close enough. So sometimes he just hasn't had the bandwidth, time, or capacity given what they're doing with their day job. So we managed to get his van MOT'd, and the engine is now sat next to the car. So progress.
Okay. we'll keep an eye on that progress. And as soon as he gets the engine in the car, who's taking it out first, you or Sam?
Sam, because it's Sam's car. It's entirely his prerogative, unless I get there first, in which case all bets are off. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, exactly.
My old silver Civic, which Tom, our friend, has acquired, that may well be parked quite close to the black Civic at some point in the not too distant future. So there's another option there. A few things sort of coming together. New tyres on Jason's Caterham, long overdue. So, something else to be able to play with. And hopefully, the BAC is on its way to being mended, although the engine diagnosis was probably not as positive as we would have liked. But, cars can be rebuilt, as can bank balances, I think.
Yeah, so, the famous icon BAC, the Golf livery BAC Mono. What a car. We look forward to seeing that back out and on track. We need to get Jason on track, actually.
Yeah, so apart from KAs, Clios, Minis, Porsches, TOCA Juniors, van MOTs, Silver Civics, Black Civics, K20 engines, Caterhams, BACs, Goodwoods that you guys covered last week, BTCC and MotorsportUK and the modified Ford series. Not much going on.
Not much going on at all, no. I did a British Motor Show. That was quite good. And I think we're going to be covering that in the next episode because I kind of want to go into a bit of detail on where the show scene kind of is in the UK on the automotive side of things. I think there's just a bit too much going on. Especially case in point, this weekend we've got Carfest down at Laverstoke Park near Basingstoke with a lot of classic race cars. And right up at Silverstone, the Silverstone Classic. So what's going on there? All sorts going on. But yes, I was back on the BRSCC live stream as well. Did some commentary on the Fun Cup race on the Saturday, and that was chaos towards the end. There's been a few awkward moments, the C1 24 hours, where it's a bit awkward for the podium afterwards, but they delayed the podium for so long. It was only commenced after the live stream was switched off. And the people that won it on the road, Morpheus Racing, lost the win, were demoted down to third. But some of the on-track action was, in the last 5 minutes, was it was frantic. And I'm going to be completely blunt here, completely diabolical at times as well. There was some seriously bad moves. But my C1s came to the fore on Sunday. Really good racing. Really good winners in Luke Harberman and Max and the TGR racing crew. They came through and won. Some good super sport endurance racing as well. That was pretty cool. Just some great BRSCC endurance racing.
And when are you out next? When are you out next yourself?
Ford Power Live in September is going to be my last one of the season. And then the car is going to have the strip.
That's what you think. That might not be the case.
That might not be the case. But either way, going into the winter, I've been chatting to Scott, my good friend who works at Sandown Motorsport, SCR, as well. And he's putting some plans together to get the car a bit of TLC love and attention she deserves. So after the racing's commenced for this year, she might be having a bit of a rebuild and a spruce up. So,
and you ran with them at the last race, didn't you? So how was that working with them?
I've known Scott through the C1 paddocks for absolutely ages. In fact, I've got down here one of his famous Motorsport in Minutes clock. I'm not going to pick it up because it weighs about 3 tons. I need to get it up on the wall. But Scott is he's a lovely human being, much like yourself, Paul, and he's very caring. And one of the first things when I got my diagnosis for the cancer a few years ago, he sent me that clock through. Only met me through the C1 commentary, but he was just like, he messaged Robin, was like, what do you think of this? Should I do it? And Robin was like, yeah, do it. And I had this clock turn up. Really, really sweet. And since then, we've hit it off in the paddocks and having Scott and Chip run the car at Snetterton and certainly very much fans of having a few beers in the evening, which I'm quite partial to as well. So, yeah, just some...
well, hopefully if you've got cancer and someone sends you a clock, it's not got a countdown on it.
That's one way to put it. Do you know what? I didn't think of it that way, but no, it's good. I mean, Scott and Chip, if you are after some C1 experiences out there, some drives, they've certainly got the cars to do it. So hit up SCR Racing on Facebook and Instagram, or Sandown Motorsport as well. Either way, you'll get through to Scott or Chip, and they'll be able to see you right. I need to get you out in the C1, I think, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably up for everything at the minute, thinking about it, part of what we talked about earlier. What about commentary box? What you got planned?
I've got a Fun Cup weekend coming up in Donington, mid-September, and then Race of Remembrance, which I'm really looking forward to because, you know, it's one of those, you waive your fee as per normal, because that whole weekend, you assume from the moment you arrive right through to when you leave, you get exactly what that weekend is all about, and the work that Mission Motorsport gets to do for the benefactors and charities, having American and Canadian teams go over and participate in that race. It is an absolute race of the ages, and I'll be vlogging that for my channel and for the Driving Talk podcast channel as well. So, yeah, really looking forward to that one. But my commentary's been a bit limited this year, unfortunately, so we'll see what happens into next year. I need to get that commentary reel put up and start advertising around, I think.
Yeah, but you've had more seat time than you've had maybe the last few years. And
that's the other way to think about it. So I still have been at race circuits. It's just predominantly been with my bum in the seat rather than my voice being on the mic. Either way, I don't mind. It's I love doing the commentary. I love doing the racing. I just love motorsport in general, and that's why I live and breathe it, and that's why I do these things.
Well, somehow you've managed to still be on the microphone, but as an entrant, when Richard John Neal actually interviewed you about being an entrant from that side. So you're not getting away from a microphone anytime soon, are you?
No, exactly. And Richard, he's taken a bit of a break from social media, and he's had quite a hectic year this year, so he's all good. But he came to see me. He was like, yeah, come and chat to you. And it was a really good sort of 10, 15-minute catch-up, just talking about all aspects of what I'm up to. Had a good chat about the podcast, Driven Minds, the work I'm doing with Driven Minds. I can't wait to see how that develops over the winter. And, we'll be catching back up with Nick and Katie in the future, no doubt, Paul. So lots going on, mate. And on top of that, we've got some awesome podcast episodes to make, haven't we?
We have. It's just about diary management, I think, isn't it? Max is incredibly busy he's run his own team. Congratulations to Hyro. They won their championship in the Clio class of brick car as well, didn't they? So, in between being a professional race driver,
he's also a professional team manager, and
now running a hospitality business out of Croft when they're up there. The man is busy.
Absolutely.
And we value the time that he gives us, but it gives us a chance to diversify and talk about some other stuff as well, and to have some different conversations. We hope he can join us for every single one, but practically it's never going to be the case. And some of the stuff you've been doing as well on your one-to-ones and talking to Robin and I know certainly the last podcast that you did as well. So giving some lots of exciting things to think about.
Absolutely. And we've got some more brilliant one-to-ones coming up. I'm not going to divulge just yet. I've got to get them booked in, but we've got some top drivers, team owners, historic racing drivers, as well. And I've potentially snagged a YouTuber to come onto the show to talk about his journey up the YouTube ranks. So, yeah, watch this space, folks. That's lots to come on the Driving Talk podcast powered by Icon. Right, so that just about covers everything with the Driving Talk podcast powered by Icon this week with myself, Rob Lewis, and Paul Harvey. Our thanks to Paul Nevill for coming on to the show and talking about the goings-on with MotorsportUK's ruling over potential series dropping rounds next year. We wait to see what happens with MotorsportUK, as I keep saying. But, Paul, a great catch-up, and we'll see you on here again soon, right?
Great to see you, Rob. Great to see everything's going well for everyone. Thanks to Paul. Look forward to the next one.
Fantastic. See you next week, guys.
Bye.